Welcome to Sports, Fifth Street Sports on Sports Byline SB Nation Radio. This is Talk You Can Bet On. I'm Nolan Dalla with our resident sports handicapping expert, Frank Perez. Frank, how you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing great. Yeah, doing fantastic. Can't wait to get started.
Can't wait to get started. We got a busy day today, a very unusual show for those of you who have been listening to us regularly. We're going to bring in Charles Jay from Miami, Florida. He's going to join us also as a resident handicapper, talking about the NFL. Now, it's the middle of May, and you're saying, why are we talking about the NFL in May? Well, we've just had the draft, and more important, perhaps for bettors, people that like to put a few dollars on the games, is the season win totals have been released by the Las Vegas casinos, the offshores, including Bet Any Sports. We'll be using those lines over the next 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen. 2 hours. We're going to break down all 32 NFL teams. All 32 teams. Hour 1, NFC. Hour 2, AFC. We got a lot of football to talk about. We're listened live on 40 stations here around the country, including KSHP Las Vegas 1400. Watch us live on Twitch, on YouTube, and on Armed Forces Radio. A big salute out to the fine men and women around the world listening to us and perhaps placing a wager or two. We got a big show, Frank, so let's see if we can bring in CJ. Charles Jay, are you there?
Charles?
It looks like Charles is going to join us in the very first segment, so just to let you know. And then, Frank, we're going to be coming back here. Remember, NFC Hour 1, AFC Hour number 2, and we've got a very busy show.
Hey, Charles.
And there's Charles.
There we are. Yeah, all right. I can't figure out this headphone. That's my problem. Okay.
You're a lot
What's
better
up, guys?
handicapper than you are at technology. Is that the idea?
I don't know what's going on when this thing blinks. I think that means it's not working, but we're okay now.
All right, you're concentrating too much on, the Atlanta Falcons and the Buffalo Bills and what have you. Make sure your headset's ready, Charles, because we got a hell of a show. 2 hours with Frank. You and I, we're going to talk about NFL season win totals over the next 2 hours. Don't go away. All right, welcome back to Fifth Street Sports on Sports Byline, SB Nation Radio. Let's bring back on, we have Frank Perez here in Las Vegas, our studio here in Las Vegas, and we have Charles Jay, CJ from Miami. CJ, are you there? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Outstanding.
And I can see you too, and you
can
look
see
real
us.
good.
Remarkable. All right, terrific. By the way, the way I'm running in the NBA, I'm dressed for my own funeral, okay? So here we go. Let's start with the NFC, gentlemen. We got a lot of teams to cover. Let's begin at the top of the list. We're going to go alphabetically, or kind of alphabetically. The Atlanta Falcons, team that played last year's Super Bowl 2 years ago, lost in the playoffs last year. Boy, a team that's really, really solid, coached by Dan Quinn. 11-5 a couple of years ago, and coming off a 10-6 record last season. What do you think, Frank? The posted win total is 9 for the Atlanta Falcons, shaded slightly toward the over. Frank Perez, what do you think?
Well, my take on Atlanta this year, I've got them. Besides their division, they go against the NFC East and the AFC North, and then they have their other game against Green Bay and Arizona. 9 over a quarter. I think this line is spot on. It's hard to see a 10, but I can't see an 8. I think the 9 is absolutely a perfect number.
Sometimes the best bet you make is the best bet you make is the bet you don't make. What do you think, CJ?
I agree. I mean, I have the 9 written right next to the name for Atlanta. I think they are 9-17. Their offensive production was down last season with Steve Sarkisian brought in as the offensive coordinator. But, the defense is the underrated part of this team. They were ranked 6th in the NFL last season in defense. There's a question about Devontae Freeman and his knee injury, but they did draft someone that they hope will be a fit complement to Julio Jones in Calvin Ridley, also out of Alabama. So that bodes well for them. This is a very competitive division, though. So, yeah, I'd pass on this one.
Tough division. New Orleans in there, Carolina in there. 9 wins. Looks a little light to me. If you put a gun to my head, I play over. Let's go on to the next team. The Arizona Cardinals, coming off a surprising 8-8 season, but really a team that's in shambles right now. Brand new coach, Steve Wilkes, coming in, and boy, listen to this quarterback situation. Josh Rosen, Mike Glennon, and Sam Bradford, it seems like he's played for about 7 or 8 other teams. Big thing, running back David Johnson coming back off the injury. But the posted win total for the Arizona Cardinals, a really, really low 5.5 in a tough division. CJ, I'll go first to you on the Arizona Cardinals. What do you think?
I'm very solidly on the over here, and I'm going to explain completely. Remember one thing about Bradford, and Bradford is the guy who will be sort of warming the seat up for Josh Rosen. Bradford's numbers in 2016, he gave Minnesota exactly what they needed. He actually set an NFL record for best accuracy in a season in 2016. He had a great opening game last year against New Orleans, and then he got injured. I mean, Bradford is more than serviceable as a quarterback as they transition away from Carson Palmer. In fact, he'll be an upgrade over last year's version, or even really the last couple of years of Carson Palmer. I don't want to talk about Rosen all that much because I don't know if this is a situation where they'll be going to him, midway through the season. But he is maybe among the drop-back quarterbacks in the draft. He may be the guy that's most ready to play in the NFL. But what's important to remember about Arizona as well is the fact that they're going to have David Johnson this year. And he was out with a wrist injury last season. He is probably the most, perhaps next to Le'Veon Bell, the most capable dual threat running back in the league. So he makes a difference in the passing game and in the running game. Now, especially in the passing game, because they'll wind up throwing short with Bradford. Larry Fitzgerald did not come back to play again for a team that was in rebuilding mode. believe me. And so they pitched him on that. He's got some support. They did lose John Brown, but Christian. Oh God! Now I lost his name over here. But Christian Kirk out of Texas A&M. He's a very capable receiver that will get a lot of playing time on the other side. This defense was 4th in the league in yards allowed last season. I think they'll get a pass rush back. The head coach, now Bruce Arians was
all right. We got you. I'm going to cut you off there, CJ. We got you. I think we know you like the over. Okay, real quick, Frank. Quick on the Cardinals.
I'm solidly on the over.
Got it.
You know what? As Charles was explaining this, I already had it circled. I really, really like the over in this one too. 5.5. I think this one. Okay, now remember, they square off with the NFC North and the AFC West. That's their 8 games plus the other 2 out of their division. I think this team is not easily, but I think it's conceivable 7 to 8 wins. So I really like the over 5.5.
Over 5.5. Let's move on. Carolina Panthers playing in that tough division we just talked about, the NFC South. 11-5 last year, and now their posted win total is 9 wins, slightly shaded toward the under. Frank, I'm going to let you keep that mic hot. What do you think about the Carolina Panthers' 9 wins?
Gosh, this Bet Any Sports has it 9 under 30. Boy, this is a tough one. They go against the NFC East and the AFC North, and then their other 2 games are Detroit and Seattle. Can this team win 10? I wouldn't lay the 9 under 30. If anything, I'd slightly hedge towards over 9 plus 110.
All right, real quick, let's move it over to Charles Jay. Charles?
Yeah, I'll take the price here, too. I think Carolina upgraded in the backfield with C.J. Anderson. He's a workhorse. Jonathan Stewart was a little stale back there as a go-to running back. And this allows Christian McCaffrey to do what he did last year, which is to be a pass receiver, basically, out of the backfield and not have to run the ball too much. Now, Thomas Davis is suspended for the first 4 games, but this is a team that has defensive infrastructure. They've added a couple of pretty explosive wide receivers, DJ Moore in the draft and Torrey Smith. So I am over with Carolina, over 9.
Excellent. We got one more team to cover in this first segment. Chicago Bears went 5-11 last year in a surprisingly tough division. 5-11, Mitch Trubisky at quarterback. Who knows, playing his second season. Mike Nagy, brand new head coach for the Bears. Their posted win total seems a little high at 6.5. You agree? You agree, CJ?
Yeah, I'm taking this price as well. I mean, Chicago will have to show me that they've improved. You're right. Who knows about Trubisky? Is he ready really to take over and to lead this team to a 500 record? The offensive line's a work in progress. The backfield's not bad, but the receivers are not scary at all here with Chicago. So I'm still not a Bears believer.
Frank?
Gosh,
you got 1 minute to sum up Chicago Bears.
Okay, so the Bears, they square off against the NFC West and the AFC East with another game against Tampa Bay and the Giants. 6.5. I actually believe, the way I break this down, this Bears team, I actually believe this 6.5 number is probably going to come down to the last game of the season. I see the last game, going into the last game on a 6. So it's going to be really tricky if they've lost anybody or how well they're playing. So I'm going to pass on this one.
You're going to pass on this one. Let's go on to the next one. We're going to do the Dallas Cowboys. That's always a public team. We're going to do a little bit on the Cowboys, a little intro here, and then we're going to take a break. Dallas Cowboys 9-7 last season, obviously coming off a strange season where Ezekiel Elliott was out with suspension. Jason Garrett's still the head coach, so always seems to go 8-8, 9-7 every season. Dak Prescott, the quarterback, looked very mediocre especially without Elliott in the backfield. We're going to go to a break here in just a moment. We're going to open up with the second segment of our number 1, where we talk about all NFL today on 5th Street Sports. We're doing the NFC on our number 1, and we'll be right back, and we'll pick it up with the experts, easy for me to say, opinions on the Dallas Cowboys. We'll be right back here on 5th Street Sports.
Okay.
I hate to rush through it. It's just Boy, it's just
too much. It's too.
You almost just need one handicapper. I mean, I love Charles. It's hard to do too. All right, welcome back here to Fifth Street Sports on Sports Byline, SB Nation Radio. I'm Nolan Dalla with Frank Perez and Charles Jay. We're breaking down all the NFL 32 teams on season win totals. Hour one is the NFC. Gentlemen, we were talking about the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. What do you think, Frank?
Well, let's see. Bet Any Sports has the 8.5 over 20, and I can't wait to hear CJ's take on this because now Dallas has got a tough schedule. They play besides their division, they go NFC South, AFC South, both really good divisions. And then their off game, and their other two games are Seattle and the Lions. 8.5 under 20. I'm going to lean slightly towards I believe this is an 8-8 team.
8-8 says Frank Perez. What do you think, CJ? Dallas Cowboys, 8.5 is the win total at betanyesports.com. CJ, are we there? Well, anyway, the Dallas Cowboys, I mean, this is a team that really seems to perpetually finish in the middle of the pack, playing the Philadelphia Eagles, the Super Bowl champions. The Washington Redskins always also seem to be right there with 7 or 8 wins. And the New York Giants now at the bottom of that division, the NFC
Hey,
East.
Charles is there.
Charles, are you there still?
Yeah, somebody must have disconnected.
Hey, all right, there we go.
Oh,
Real quick, you got 30 seconds on the Dallas Cowboys. That's not fair, but I'm going to hold you to the fire. 30 seconds on the Cowboys, over or under 8.5 wins.
I don't know if I'm a long-term fan of Dak Prescott, but this team improved itself through the draft. Des Bryant's gone, but look out for Michael Gallup. He's the 3rd-round draft choice out of Colorado State. He will be a very productive addition to that team, and they were surprised they got him. They improved themselves on defense and with Connor Williams on the offensive line. It was a little down last season. I'm going to shade toward the over with Dallas. I think this is the best division in football this year.
Wow, what a statement that is. We'll argue about that later, gentlemen. Frank says under. CJ says over on the Cowboys. We have a split. Let's move on to the Detroit Lions. 9-7 last year. They fired the head coach and brought in Matt Patricia, the former defensive coordinator for the New England Patriots. You see him on the sidelines there with a beard. It seems like the Detroit Lions hire a new coach every 1 or 2 years. They've only had like 80 coaches, and I think this is their 8th coach since 2000, the 8th head coach for the Lions. Hard to establish much continuity there, but Detroit Lions, here we are with an 8-win team. This is what the Bet on Sports over-under is on the season win totals. CJ, I'll stay with you on the Lions. What say you?
Well, one thing that Patricia did was he held on to the offensive coordinator, Jim Bob Cooter, which I think is a plus. I think he had a good rapport with Matthew Stafford. And they want to run the football. They drafted Kerryon Johnson, and they acquired LeGarrette Blount. So, they have to establish the run. But I think that this Matt Patricia situation is going to get stranger and stranger in the next couple of weeks. the thing with the legal situation, which it really doesn't exist. But I think you're going to, with that statement he made the other day, that was really kind of self-righteous and talking about how this was all made up, this sexual assault indictment. I think you're going to hear from some people who from his past. I just have that feeling. He almost dared them to come out, and that's going to have a deleterious effect on this team. I'm under on Detroit.
Well, I got to look up deleterious, but what you said, it sounds pretty interesting and very supportive of the under. Real quick on the Lions, what do you say, Frank?
On the Lions, okay, we got an 8 under 40. Now, remember, this team is a professional 500 team, okay? They just figure out a way to get near 500 every year, no matter how good or bad they play. They go against the NFC West and the AFC East. Then they play Dallas and Carolina. Gosh, I cannot see 9 wins here. I'm gonna go with CJ on this one on the under. And by the way, on Dallas, when I said CJ went over, I went under. I'm not really. I mean, slightly under. Don't get me wrong. CJ's got good points, but on the Detroit Lions, I am going to go ahead and match CJ with the 8 under.
All right, real good, gentlemen. Same division. Let's stay in the Central, in the NFC Central. The Green Bay Packers went 7-9 last season. Of course, the big news of the Packers was they were looked like a Super Bowl contender until Aaron Rodgers goes down with a season-ending injury. Roughly week 7 or 8, I think it was. Mike McCarthy still there on the sidelines. Doesn't seem to be much of a coach without the great Aaron Rodgers there taking the snaps. We'll see what happens. 10 wins. Boy, everybody says that the Packers are going to bounce back and be right there with Minnesota in the NFC North. Gentlemen, what do you think? Let's start with CJ on the Packers. 10 wins.
Yeah, I think the Packers had a nice draft. They addressed some needs in the secondary. They drafted a couple of cornerbacks, Josh Jackson and Jaire Alexander. Rodgers was not happy that Jordy Nelson was allowed to get away, but Jimmy Graham's in, and I think you're going to see Rodgers using the tight end extensively. He'll have some fun with that. I wonder really who the running back's going to be, or if it's going to be a committee. But at Bet Any Sports, it's plus 120 on the over. I'm willing to take that price with the Packers.
Gosh, okay, let me see. Green Bay. Now they go also there against the NFC West, AFC East. Then they play Washington and Atlanta on their other games. Now now keep in mind that this division here has the highest win total. It's a 34.5 for the division. They got Minnesota at 10, they're at 10, 8 on the Detroit, and 6.5 on the Bears. So it's considered the highest win total division. 10 under 40. I definitely wouldn't go under. I'm going to pass on this. I'm going to pass. I think it's a
Frank,
10.
Pass. Let's move. This is 2 interesting teams to follow up and close this segment out with. The LA Rams. We'll talk about the Vikings coming up in just a moment. But the LA Rams, talk about a team that's built for the future, a dynasty in the making. The youngest NFL head coach of the modern era, Sean McVay, going 11-5 last season. Jared Goff at quarterback looks like the real deal. The Los Angeles area believes in the Rams. A very exciting. Who would have thought the Rams, leading the NFL in scoring at least a large part of the season last year. The Rams now a lot of respect, or maybe not enough respect, at 9.5 wins, shaded a little bit to the over at minus 135. What do you think, CJ?
Well, and Sean McVay was not intimidated at all by the situation last year, was he? I mean, they did a great job with Jared Goff. They gave him some coaching, and he responded. They have a dominant running back with Todd Gurley. They added Brandon Cooks to give them a long threat. And Wade Phillips, I mean, is there a better defensive coordinator in all of football?
Absolutely.
They gave him they've given him some new toys to work with this season. When you add Ndamukong Suh and then cornerbacks Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib, you've got 3 people who could be all pros this season to join Aaron Donald. The Rams are going for the whole enchilada. I mean, and I really respect that and appreciate that on their part. They want to win it all, and I think they're going to have a shot to win it all. They would probably be my pick to win the NFC right now. So obviously at Bet Any Sports at minus 135, I am over and bullish on the Los Angeles Rams.
I completely agree. They play the North. They play the NFC North and the AFC West. Then their 2 off games are New Orleans and Philly. Kind of tough. I actually believe I'm going to step out on a limb with this, and I believe this is your Super Bowl winner.
Wow.
This is it. So
bold prediction.
I actually not easily, but I can see 11 or 12 wins out of this team. This team by far is. I'm 100% behind CJ here. I would take over 9.5 minus 35. All day long.
Yeah, I don't know why there's not a 10 posted. Again, they went 11 last year, and again, they have another year of experience. This team's going to be somebody to watch for a long time. Minnesota Vikings, another team that's Mike Zimmer's done a remarkable job. 13-3 last season. Certainly one of the best teams in the NFC. Losing an NFC Championship game, getting blown out by Philadelphia. Although they probably shouldn't have been in that game, except for that miraculous last-second play against the Saints that cost Mr. Frank Perez a fair amount of money, I believe. Kirk Cousins is the quarterback for the Vikings. I'm going to leave it with you, Frank. Minnesota Vikings posted win total of 10 wins.
Okay, and it's 10 flat, minus 110 at Bet Any Sports. They play the NFC West, the AFC East, and then they got their 2 other games against Philly and New Orleans. A 10. You know what? I don't see an 11 here. I got to go under here. I definitely got to go under. Well, gosh, it's so flat. I would pass. I'm going to take a pass.
But you also mentioned that the NFC North has the highest win totals of all the divisions.
They got 34.5 wins
to go under. All right, Frank. CJ, what do you think about the Vikings 10?
Well, I mean, they got to the NFC title game with Case Keenum at the helm last year, and Kirk Cousins is an upgrade. Their receivers are good enough. I mean, they have a pretty good set of receivers. Now, Dalvin Cook is a potential game breaker at running back. He got hurt early last season. So assuming that he'll be able to play and play well this year, it makes the offense even better. Obviously, we know how good the defense is. They added depth to the secondary with Mike Hughes out of Central Florida, the undefeated Central Florida Knights in the draft. I'm over on Minnesota. They're national champion Central Florida Knights, right?
All right. So it looks like you
right?
A little Florida bias there in your comments. Got to keep it impartial, CJ. Anyway, let's move on. We're gonna go to break here in just a moment. Before I do, I'm going to introduce the New Orleans Saints. We're going to get into the NFC South here for a moment. Sean Payton going into his, I think, 12th year as a head coach. Again, the Saints victims of one of the most miraculous last-second, like immaculate reception type plays last season. Or I think that New Orleans goes into Philadelphia and gives them a whale of a game and potentially could have matched up very well with the Patriots. I'm a Saints fan, so I'm a little biased now on this. But the Saints playing in a very, very tough division. We're going to come back here in a moment and talk about all of this. We got to wrap up the NFC. We're going to talk about the AFC in our second hour. And we've got a lot more to discuss here on Bet Any Sports, Fifth Street Sports Show on Saturday. We're going to come back with Frank Perez and Charles Jay to talk about the rest of the NFC this opening hour. Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. I'm Nolan Dalla. He's Frank Perez. We have CJ, Charles Jay in Miami. We're going to wrap up the NFC here in this last final segment of Saturday, 5th Street Sports, on the radio, on the live stream on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and everywhere else around the world. We were talking about the New Orleans Saints, gentlemen. Let's see what that total is at BetND Sports. 9.5 wins. Not a lot of respect for the Saints, although a team that just scores 1 million points a game, it seems, shaded even towards the under. Frank, a little surprise on that with 9.5 on the Saints?
Yeah, well, this morning when I looked at BetND Sports, it was 9.5 under 30, so they've taken 15 cents. Okay, now this Saints are also, they're in the second highest win total of 34. They play the NFC East, the AFC North. Their other two games are against Minnesota and the Rams. And it's all about Breeze and this coaching staff. I'm going to go with this team. Too dangerous to try to make them 10 or 11. I'm going to go under 9.5.
Wow, under, says Frank Perez on the Saints. Difficult team to figure out. Much improved defense, by the way, for the Saints. I'm surprised that's not getting a little more respect from Mr. Perez. Charles Jay, what do you think?
Well, yeah, they did prove last season that they were more than just the Drew Brees show. They ran the ball and they defended. They were vastly improved on defense. Of course, when you have a rookie of the year like Marshawn Lattimore in there, he made a lot of difference in the secondary. Here's the interesting situation, though, with the Saints. Mark Ingram is suspended for the first 4 games of the season. That leaves Alvin Kamara. Now, this was an incredible combo, maybe the most productive ever in the backfield. Kamara only played 45% of the snaps last season, though. He was a dual threat, but mostly catching passes out of the backfield. And they say they're not going to sign a veteran running back. Now, you have DeMarco Murray out there. I know Adrian Peterson wants to come back to New Orleans. I don't think that's going to happen. But, that's what makes this a question mark for me. What are they going to make a move in that area? Because I don't know that this is the best thing for them, for Kamara to have the whole, workload here. So I would probably pass on this, but if you put the gun to my head, I would go over on the 9.5 wins.
All right, let's move on to the New York Giants, a team that went 3-13 last season, absolutely decimated by injuries. Pat Shurmur comes in as the first-year head coach. Eli Manning will still be under center. A team that drafted running back, their first, a team that just had no running game, no help whatsoever for Manning. This team is in a complete rebuilding mode, it would seem, especially with a first-year head coach. And that win total probably reflects some skepticism here about the New York Giants at the lowest total in the NFC East, which is 6.5 wins. Frank Perez, what say you?
I got to tell you, okay, they play the NFC South and the AFC South with the game against the 49ers and the Bears, 6.5 over 30. This is my third best pick. I love this over. I really do. This team is not a 6-win team, so I believe I think they're going to get at least. Well, they're going to get 7, but I think they can get 8 or 9 wins here. I'm going to go over on the Giants, pretty big here.
Let me just hold your feet to the fire a little bit. In 20 seconds, what's the biggest reason you're a believer in the Giants as an over team?
Well, first of all, this team knows how to win. Okay, and they had a bad year last year. Everything went bad for them. They have a semi-soft schedule here. Even in their own division, I think they can maybe go 3-1 against Dallas and Washington. I see seven easily here.
All right, Frank. He's out there on a limb. Let's see if Charles Jay wants to crawl out there like a squirrel for the For that. Anyway, it's all yours, Charles. What do you think?
I agree. I'm on the over here as well, and this deserves a little time. They gave Eli Manning a vote of confidence. They are sticking with him. They went with running back instead of drafting that quarterback of the future. And this is a team that has changed regime. Dave Gettleman is the new general manager. As you mentioned, Shermer's the new head coach. They want to win. They want to rebound and win now. There's no 3-year plan around here. Saquon Barkley, if he's as good as all the scouts seem to think he is, can be a transformational player for them. If you're looking for reasons right there. Remember one thing about a lot of these highly drafted stud running backs, if they make an impact in the NFL, they make an impact right away. I mean, running back is a position where these guys make an impact right away. And Barkley, they see as a guy who they can split out wide. He's got tremendous speed. If they want to use him in the return game, they can do that. He'll be the main running back. Jonathan Stewart's there as a backup to take some pressure off him.
All right, you got me. All right. I'm waving the red flag because we got to move on for time. Gentlemen, you're both on the over on the Giants. I disagree.
I'm on the
I disagree
over
completely with you. I think you're both crazy and wrong. I still respect you, still love you. Let's move on to the Super Bowl champions. And we only got about a minute and a half on each team. We've got to wrap this up. Philadelphia Eagles, Super Bowl champions, coming off a great season. Doug Peterson, what a season that they had, their first Super Bowl. 10.5 wins. I'll let you go on, CJ. What do you think about the Eagles?
Well, I like the Eagles over as well. And I'll probably lose one or two of these NFC East propositions because I think I'm over on all of them. But I think this is a team that's built to last. Doug Peterson, I think, has a real command of the analytics of the game. He's a little ahead of some coaches. Carson Wentz is not being rushed back. He probably will be ready for the beginning of the season, but we know they have an insurance policy, right? They didn't trade Nick Foles for that reason. They've added some parts on the offense. Michael Bennett, he's another defensive lineman that they're going to continue to rotate. They have a lot of defensive linemen that they take in and out of the game. That was a key to their success last season. A lot of depth there. Darren Sproles may be back and effective again. And Jason Peters, don't underestimate his return at left tackle. He's been an all-pro, and he was injured last season, so they had to improvise there. We'll go over at plus 120 at betanysports.eu.
Pretty scary. The Eagles could be better than they were last year. Real quick, Frank.
They also play NFC South, AFC South. Now their two other games are Rams and Minnesota, two real tough games. Two real tough schedules. I believe last year, I believe it was a little bit of momentum, and they played. You know what? I'm going to pass on this one. I think this one's too close to the number. Probably come down to the last game of the season as well.
One of the most intriguing teams in all of the NFL last season. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in as a quarterback, wins all of his starts. 6-10 when Niners were last season, a bit misleading. Kyle Shanahan in his second year as the head coach. Let's look at the San Francisco 49ers total. We're rolling that up here. We're moving along pretty fast here. 8.5 wins. All of a sudden, there's a lot of respect, a lot of love for those 49ers who have been in the dumpster for at least 4 or 5 years. What do you think, CJ?
I'm going to go under and take the price here with some reservations. I mean, I have rarely seen or heard teammates talk about a quarterback with so much a guy that just came in with so much confidence as they talked about Garoppolo last season. I mean, they were a different team last year with him. Now, maybe the ether has worn off a little bit, though, because if you look at the San Francisco roster, they may not have enough at the skill positions, I mean, frankly. And so I think they have to upgrade themselves in that area. The defense was 25th in the league last year. Richard Sherman was a big acquisition, but he's coming off that Achilles injury, and he might not be the same. Reuben Foster, the linebacker, who was a first-round draft choice last season, he's got legal issues. So who knows where the answers are coming on defense if those guys either can't perform or aren't 100%. So I'm under.
I agree with CJ there. I like the under here. They play the North and the NFC North, the AFC West. That's not that tough. And then their games are against the Giants and Tampa Bay. But believe me, this team is inflated because of this quarterback. Mm-hmm. So even with him playing, I still kind of like it under. I think it lands on 8. Let alone if something happens to them. If something happens to this guy and he misses 3 to 5 starts, it definitely goes way under. So I'm going to go under on the 49ers.
Well, whenever they do the bloopers reel on this thing that I called him Jimmy Garoppolo, I think I did that a minute ago.
I get called Frank Lopez by the boss
Jimmy
here.
Garoppolo,
By Nick.
By the way, so don't send me. Go ahead and send me the hate mail. Let's get on.
How about Nick Gerber? He's got a Scarface fascination.
Let's
calls
move
me
on
Frank
to Seattle
Lopez.
Seahawks. We got three more teams to cover in 25 seconds, it seems to me. Seattle Seahawks falling back to earth last season. Offensive line was just battered. They went 9-7 last season. Pete Carroll, first kind of a down year for him. But Seattle Seahawks right there at 8 wins. Charles Jay, what say you, sir?
They might be right at 8 wins when all is said and done. If you pushed me here, I would go under. And one of the reasons is I think this is a transitional year for Seattle. They've lost a lot of the swagger from this team, if you really think about it. They lose Richard Sherman, Michael Bennett, Cliff Averill, he's gone. Jimmy Graham's gone. Paul Richardson, who was an explosive wide receiver, gone. I mean, they did address a running back need in the draft, yes. But Russell Wilson can't do everything out there. And I think you're going to see some holes on the – Cam Chancellor, he's a question mark with his neck injury. You don't know if this is going to be a defense that is, that is whole this year. So
CJ, I'm going to cut you off 10 seconds here.
Under.
We're going to go Frank. He says under. You agree? Yes or no, Frank?
No, well, they play the North, the NFC North, the AFC West, and their other 2 games are Dallas and Carolina. I'm going to pass on this one. I think it lands right on the 8. And the guys over at Bet Any Sports, I know the guys over there. They're extra sharp. They got it 8 minus under 30. I say I'm going to pass. I think it lands 8.
Tampa Bay 5-11 last season. We'll roll it over to Tampa Bay. Jameis Winston, I got that quarterback's pronunciation correctly. Jameis Winston injured last season. This is Dirk Koetter's third season at the helm at Tampa Bay. Tough division. It's probably a cellar dweller in the NFC South. 6.5 wins. CJ, what do you think?
They were one of the worst defenses in the league last season. They've done some things to address the secondary. They're relatively deep back there, but Winston turned the ball over a lot last season, and this return of Dirk Koetter as the head coach. I mean, you guys know that all of last season, all the last second half of the season, they were talking about how Gruden was going to come in, and they brought Koetter back. Him and Winston were not on the same page apparently for a lot of the season. Look out though for running back Ronald Jones out of USC. He's the guy that has to be the difference maker for Tampa Bay because they don't really have a go-to running back.
We got 1 minute left. Quick.
No. It's so CJ. So,
well,
what do you like here, CJ? Over or under on this one?
I got to go with an under here. I haven't gone with enough unders, I think, in this conference.
Yeah, I need some unders.
Yeah. You got to be careful because there's only so many games. I think you're might be a little slightly too much overish here, but me too. I'm going to take under in this one too. These are so close. I think it lands 6.
Life is not fair, gentlemen. We're down to 1 minute. We got the Washington Redskins to talk about. 7-9 last season. Jay Gruden at the helm. Washington Redskins 7 wins. Give us 20 seconds each of you. What do you say, CJ?
I think they're right at 7 wins.
Yeah,
Let's not forget, though, Alex Smith, and we'll talk about this when we get to the Chiefs, but Alex Smith, he had the highest quarterback rating in the league last season. So don't really underestimate what the offense can do. Some problems on defense. Darius Geis, he could be the guy that makes all the difference. It's a big question mark for me, but I think at 7 maybe.
So do I. I totally agree. I think 7 is a perfect number here. I'm going to pass.
Stay tuned for more here at 5th Street Sports. Coming up in hour number 2, we're going to look at the season wins for the AFC. Congratulations, gentlemen. We did it. We wiped out all 16 teams in the NFC. Come on back for the AFC right up. Hi, I'm Nolan Dalla with Frank Perez and Charles Jay. Final minute here, finest couple of minutes of hour number one, talking about the NFC. Gentlemen, if you can hear me, we are going to wrap it up, the hour number one NFC season win totals. You're going to give us your best one or two or maybe three bets amongst what we've talked about so far. Frank, what are your best three bets in the NFC?
Well, here's my three that I really like in the NFC. I'm going to go with the Giants over 6.5, the Rams over 9.5, and Arizona over 5.5. But that's my top three. I'm definitely playing those. And there's two that I semi like just a little bit that I'm gonna try this. What was it? The 49ers under 8.5 for a little bit, and Tampa Bay under 6.5. So that's my 5 selections. 3 real tough and 2 just slight plays.
Excellent, Frank Perez. Charles J., you get to come into the step into the batter's box and do the cleanup. Here we go.
Well, I'm going to save you some time. My top 3 are the same as Frank's top 3.
Oh,
Wow.
Wow.
So there you go.
Wow.
How do you like it? How do you like that?
Hey, now I got a minute and 45 seconds I wasn't expecting to be able to play with.
Charles, do you kind of marginally like something else?
Well, I like anything that I've committed to. I kind of like, like I said, the Rams, I think, like you, are very possibly a Super Bowl team. Arizona is not going to be a patsy, and I should mention that Steve Wilkes is the new head coach, and he's defensive-minded as opposed to Bruce Arians, who was offensive-minded. They'll get after the passer again this season. They're only 1 year removed from being a great pass rush there. That's what you didn't allow me to say before, Nolan. You cut me off. So there you go. I took that opportunity. Okay.
All right. You had to slip it in there, didn't you, CJ? Very sneaky man you are. You are. Gentlemen, I think you talked me into the Rams on the over. I hate going with the public. I know you're not public cappers. You're more contrarians like I am. But, boy, you look at the Rams, they're loaded. I disagree with you totally on the New York Giants. I think this team's in a total rebuilding phase. And the San Francisco 49ers, I think I'm going to walk to the window, maybe go over to Bet Any Sports and make a wager on the under 8.5 on the 49ers. I wouldn't expect you to say that, but that's a good contrarian play. Wow, we got to wrap it up here. We got a few more seconds left in hour number one. We're coming right back with AFC, 16 teams, lots to talk about, lots to argue about, and a lot of winners, hopefully. Frank Perez with Charles J. I'm Nolan Dalla. I'll be right back in hour two with Fifth Street Sports. All right, welcome back to Fifth Street Sports on Sports Byline SB Nation Radio. Talk you can bet on. We just spent a whole hour on the NFC talking about season win totals, the numbers released by offshore sports books and the books here in casinos here in Las Vegas a week or two ago. Lines have already shifted a little bit on the teams. Again, we covered the NFC Hour 1. You can always go to our site at fifthstreetsports.com. Let me do that again. fifthstreetsports.com with a 5, the number 5. fifthstreetsports.com. You can always watch the old programs that we do. They're all archived up at our site. So you can join the discussion on Facebook at fifthstreetsportstalk.com and check it out. And you can obviously see a lot of things about soccer, about football, about baseball, basketball. We cover it all here. And talk you can bet on at Fifth Street Sports. We've got Charles Jay in Miami. There, if you can see the little, there's an icon up there, and we have him there with the internet connection to talk about the AFC coming up here in hour 2. And Frank Perez, resident handicapper of Fifth Street Sports here in Las Vegas with me. Real quick, Frank, we were talking before we get into the teams in the AFC, you were talking about the general concept of betting unders rather than overs if you have to just bet a team. Why is that?
Well, especially on May 12th. Because remember, like this show that we're putting on right now has a 90-day expiration date. They don't kick off for about 90 days. So this stuff is good for almost 3 months. It's because, let's say, for instance, you were to take a New England over or a Pittsburgh over. Those teams they're so heavy on the quarterback. If something was to happen to, Roethlisberger or Brady, you got nothing. You can only get hurt betting over on them. You can only get hurt.
Yeah, the team win totals are predicated upon healthy
on those
starting
teams.
Quarterbacks, that's for sure. We only got about 15, 20 seconds. Let's bring in CJ. Charles Jay, you there?
I am here.
All right, you ready to talk about the AFC?
I sure am.
All right, we're going to talk about the AFC. We got a lot of teams to cover. 16 teams left in the AFC to cover in this second hour of Fifth Street Sports Saturday. I can't get it all out, can I?
It's the white wine.
Let me have some more wine, and I'll
it's the white wine. It's some good stuff.
It's white wine. I need red wine. Give me fresh red wine. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about the AFC for the next hour. Stay tuned. Getting tongue-tied.
Yeah, I know.
Shit. All right. I should have told CJ just to be a little more Back here on 5th Street Sports with Frank Perez and CJ, Charles Jay, the resident analyst for BetAnySports.com, providing expertise and perhaps even some betting advice for the AFC. The NFL season win totals have been released, and we're talking about this in May. We may do another show, gentlemen, coming up toward the end of the summer before the season starts, because a lot can happen with NFL exhibition games and moves and all kinds of things over the next 3 or 4 months. Keep in mind that this show is taking place in May, very much in the off season of the NFL. Let's just get it started. Let's roll out with the Baltimore Ravens. First team in the AFC as we go through this over the next hour. The Baltimore Ravens 9-7 last season. Nick Flacco. By the way, real quick, CJ, Charles Jay is there on the line with me. We were talking off the air earlier, and we were discussing about Nick Flacco. I just got Flacco. I have to say, you mentioned something. You don't think Nick Flacco is going to survive the season as a starting quarterback?
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco. Excuse me. Joe Flacco is going to survive the season. Is that? Are you still with that?
He doesn't seem happy that they drafted Lamar Jackson and that they moved up 20 spots to get him. That's an indication that that they see him as the future. Flacco hasn't really been that productive since he got that huge contract after winning the Super Bowl. He had the lowest yards per attempt of any quarterback last season. I mean, they're talking, yes, they're going with him, but who knows? Again, we are speculating here. What's going to happen before the real training camp starts? They seem to love what Jackson can do, what he can bring to the table. Remember, they signed Robert Griffin as well. So they're looking for guys with more mobility. And it wouldn't surprise me if they I don't know if they really could come up with a trade for Flacco, but it wouldn't surprise me, especially if he was going to be really unhappy in that situation. I'm under on the Ravens here.
Wow. Well, let me see. But before we go on here, I just wanted everybody to mention, before our picks, and you see how professional CJ is, right? The analyst for Bet Any Sports. Mention to them the bonus that you get for playing at BetAnySports.com. It's $1,000 bonus. Up to 50% matching. Plus, with reduced juice, you got the World Cup $2 overnight baseball lines and reduced juice on all of this. It's a 5-star book. So besides our picks, this is the best place to play because we get, we're very proud to, have them as one of our sponsors.
Absolutely.
But as far as Baltimore, the AFC West, NFC South is who they play. Their other 2 games are Buffalo and Tennessee. 8. I would go under. I cannot see. They got to get to 9 for you to lose your bet, so I'll go under 8.
Makes sense. Let's move on to the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills 9-7 last season, made the playoffs for the first time in seems like a long time, and they won a lot of games ugly. Sean McDermott there with the Bills, again a team that who knows where they'll go. A lot of people think they're going to take a step back this season. I mean, certainly the total reflects that at 6.5. My goodness, talk about a drop off in expectation. Shaded slightly toward the over at plus 115, according to the Bet Any Sports line. Frank, what do you think about the Bills?
Oh, okay. Here now, this is the team. I kind of like this bet here. Now they play the AFC South, NFC North. Their 2 off games are the Chargers and Baltimore, and the over 6.5 is plus 115. I'm going over in this entire division except for New England. So I like the over 6.5 plus 115.
Yeah, I'm going to tease you before we go to CJ on this. I'm going to tease you. You'd like all the teams other than New England in that division to go over, and we'll hold that thought as to why at the close of the show. CJ, what do you think about the Bills?
They kind of backdoored it into the playoffs last season. I don't know, was it Cincinnati that made that miracle comeback against Baltimore, I think, in the final game that got Buffalo in there?
Yes. As somebody who had the other side, I remember the game.
Yeah, I had it too.
They dealt Tyrod Taylor. I don't know if A.J. McCarron is the answer. I'm not sure how good he is. But here's what kind of worries me about Buffalo is that, you never know if they're out of this division race. At some point in the season, they're going to say, okay, we're going to give Josh Allen an opportunity. And of all these quarterbacks, I think he may be the least able to step into an NFL huddle right now. I think he's one of those guys that looks good, has all the physical attributes, but I think he's got problems with decision making, and they'll suffer because of it. So I would go under here with Buffalo.
Let's move it on to the Cincinnati Bengals. 7-9 last season. Everyone in the NFL thought that this was Marvin Lewis's swan song the last couple of years, where they upset the last year they upset the Lions closing the season. Then they won another game late, as CJ just mentioned there. 7-9 last season. Marvin Lewis still there. 6.5 wins. Wow, it. What do you think, Frank?
They play AFC West, NFC South, with the 2 games against Miami and Indy. Under 6.5 minus 115. I'm going to go over with this Cincinnati team. I think they're at least a 7-win team.
Wow.
And
so he's thinking he's going to go 7-9, at least maybe 8-8. Over, says Frank. CJ,
believe, yeah.
What do you think on the Bengals?
Well, that was a strange situation with Marvin Lewis. They did kind of rally for him, right, at the end of the season. He's back. He works cheap, is what I'm told.
And that's a cheap organization.
I'm told by people in the NFL that's the reason they've kept him around for so long. It is a very cheap organization. I think with Andy Dalton, you're kind of limited as to how far you can actually go. But I do think there's enough talent on this team on both sides of the ball to get to 7 wins. So I'd go over as well.
All right, real quick, we're going to move on to the Cleveland Browns. By the way, an intriguing team. They go 0-16, only the second team since the 1970 NFL AFL merger to go winless, 0-16. The Lions, of course, with the other team back in, I think, 2011, I think it was. So the Browns 0-16. Remarkably, their posted win total at Bet Sports and around Las Vegas, 5.5 wins. People are thinking they're going to win 5 or 6 games. That's pretty remarkable. Explain that to me, please, resident Bet Sports handicapper analyst Charles Jay.
Personally, I think that asking for more than 4 or 5 wins of improvement would be a stretch for Cleveland. However, they did add some players. I mean, there's one of these years they're going to break out. I'm not saying that facetiously.
Yeah, 2084, watch out.
No. What I'm saying is it's going to be this year and next year. You're going to see, what they've done in the last few years manifest itself. They've added talent. I mean, Carlos Hyde in the backfield. Tyrod Taylor is more than a serviceable quarterback for this team, as Baker Mayfield kind of sits and learns or whatever he's going to do, or he may play right away. But they have receivers. Josh Gordon, I mentioned this to you the other night, I think, on the phone, a guy that led the NFL in receiving yards one year. Jarvis Landry led the NFL in receptions last year for the Miami Dolphins. They addressed some needs on the defensive side of the ball. They're still a ways away on defense, and that's, I think, what's going to hold them back here. I'm under with the Browns, but not resoundingly under. I mean, I think that they'll be much improved this year.
Well, when it comes to the Browns and getting there to the Super Bowl, I have 2 Cleveland Browns buddies that are like diehard Browns fans, and I think there's a better chance that my hunchback aunt straightening out than this team getting to the Super Bowl. So, or getting to even maybe not the playoffs, but I'm going to go under here also. I don't see 6 wins. 4 or 5 and 4 or 5 is pretty decent from 0, So I'll go under.
No respect for the poor Cleveland Browns. Their misery continues, gentlemen. We're going to wrap this first segment up. Talk very briefly about the Denver Broncos, 5-11. Very solid defense. Case Keenum coming in at the quarterback position, apparently in 2018 will be the starter. Vance Joseph, I'm still not a believer he's a head coach material. We're going to talk about let's go ahead and get into the Broncos a little bit, and then maybe we'll cut it off and we'll bring in Charles in the next. Frank, what do you think about the Broncos?
Okay,
By the way, 7 wins is their posted total.
Okay, now they go against, besides their division, of course, they go AFC North, NFC West, and then they play the Jets in Houston, 7 over. I think that this Denver team is a 500 team. I'm going to take over on this. I'm going to take over on it.
All right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to tease everybody, and I'm going to hold the thought that you like the Broncos there, and we'll see what happens there with Charles Jay coming back on the second part of this segment of our number 2 with the AFC. We're going to talk about the rest of the AFC, all the other divisions. Charles Jay is going to pick it up when we come right back. We're going to talk about the Denver Broncos and all the other teams in the AFC, the NFL season win totals. Talking here on 5th Street Sports. We'll be right back. Back to Fifth Street Sports on Sports Barline, SB Nation Radio. I'm Nolan Dalla. He's Frank Perez. And we're also with Charles Jay, the resident analyst from BetAny Sports. We were talking about the AFC season win totals in the NFL. We were discussing the Denver Broncos. I'm going to throw it right over to all the way across the country there in Miami. Charles Jay, what do you think about the Denver Broncos at 7 wins?
Well, potentially the Broncos are a wild card contender at least, because of the defense. I mean, they were number 1 in total defense last season. They drafted Bradley Chubb, who, potentially is a monster playing on the other, opposite Von Miller. But they made some additions to the offense that could be productive. But with these journeyman, I'm very wary of these journeyman quarterbacks who have a really good season when they're in exactly the right situation, and can they do that again? I mean, we've seen that before. And so I'm skeptical about Case Keenum, and I wonder whether he's going to be the quarterback all season long for Denver for that reason. And I do think they're kind of a 7-win team, maybe an 8-win team, but I would take a price with the under here, because who knows if we see Paxton Lynch at some point in there. I'd like to see them give Chad Kelly an opportunity, Jim Kelly's nephew, who I think has a load of talent, but was injured last season and sat out his whole rookie year.
Agreed. Defense probably gives them 6, maybe 7 wins, and if the quarterback comes through, maybe they go over that total. Mm-hmm. Boy, this is an intriguing team to me. The Houston Texans, 4-12 last season, but you know what? The Houston Texans, this is the team that could really break out. Anyone who watched those games where Deshaun Watson at quarterback, he is an absolute game changer. An absolute game changer. I would physically have to stand up when I watched him play. They almost upset the Patriots. Anybody who watched Deshaun Watson under center with the Texans, this is a game changer for this franchise. If he can somehow stay healthy, again, that's a big if. Obviously, J.J. Watt on the defensive line, another big injury concern for the Houston Texans. Let's scroll it there, Boggs. It's a look at the Houston Texans win total at 8.5. A lot of respect for the Texans to go from 4-12. Expectation now that they'll be an above 500 team. Charles J., I'll stick with you. What do you think about the Texans?
I'm not sure there was a more dramatic difference between quarterbacks last season than Watson and, anybody else that they went to. They scored a load of points with him at quarterback. And, I think guys like him, at least for their first couple of seasons in the NFL, can confuse defensive coordinators. They run around a lot. And then what happens is some offensive coordinator wants to settle them down and make them a drop back passer, and all of a sudden they're a different quarterback. But for now, if he gets over this injury, Watson is an effective leader. Yeah, he's got receivers like Will Fuller downfield. He can, if he can find those guys, this is going to be a pretty explosive offense. They were last in points allowed last season, which was a real surprise for this defense. But remember, J.J. Watt suffered a season-ending injury. Purportedly, he's healthy and ready to go. They added the Honey Badger in the secondary. And so, these are difference makers, Watson especially. And so I'm over on the Houston Texans. I think they can challenge Jacksonville in the division.
Las Vegas, Frank, Houston Texans, 8.5.
I agree with Charles there. They got as soft a schedule as you can get. AFC East, NFC East, then they play Cleveland and Denver as their other 2 games. I see 9 wins here. I see 9 wins. I'll take over with Houston.
Yeah, that's an interesting division to, that's the interesting thing about the Texans. And they're also 3, by the way, they play 3 primetime games on the schedule this season, the Texans do, all at home.
Oh, nice.
Easy schedule.
Nice.
The primetime games all at home. That Houston situation is going to be rocking. If somehow Deshaun Wilson stays healthy, watch out. Boy, a lot of question marks about the Indianapolis Colts at 4-12 last season. Andrew Luck, I don't think he's thrown a pass in almost 2 seasons. First-year head coach Frank Reich, the comeback kid from the ex-Buffalo Bills quarterback, is his first year as head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Indianapolis posted win total of 6.5. Charles J., what do you think?
I think if Luck is healthy and can play, and I was listening to the general manager the other day, he insists that Luck is going to be there for game 1 of the season, and for training camp. So He's the difference maker. He will push them over 6.5 wins. They've gotten him some more protection. They got the best offensive lineman available in the draft in Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame. They'll go with some 2 tight end setups because they got Eric Ebron from the Detroit, who played with the Detroit Lions last season. Their running backs are not threatening. The defense is not stellar, but I think the Colts can be a 7-win team. I think they'll creep over this total.
I agree. They go AFC East, NFC East, just like Houston, and then they got Cincinnati and Oakland. I'm going to take the price and go over 6.5 with this team. This team's got a lot of heart. I'll take over.
Bold predictions, gentlemen. I respect that. Jacksonville Jaguars. A little bit of a surprise team last season, getting all the way to, within 5 or 6 minutes of being a Super Bowl, getting in the Super Bowl. They were beating the New England Patriots on their home turf. They beat the Steelers. Jacksonville Jaguars, 10-6 last season. Doug Marrone, what a remarkable job he did as head coach. Blake Bortles, the big question mark at quarterback, but the defense is for real in Jacksonville. Posted win total of 9 wins. What do you think, Charles Jay?
This is one of the 4 really good defenses, really great defenses in the NFL, along with, I think, the Rams now and Denver and obviously Minnesota. Listen, I'm going to save you some time. I think it's the same formula as last season. Defense, pound the football, and hope that Blake Bortles doesn't make mistakes. He did a pretty good job last season in that regard. So I'm over on the 9 wins, and they're a division winner probably again.
Jeez, okay, they go against the East and the AFC. Then they got Pittsburgh and Kansas City, tough games.
Yeah, they play a first place schedule now. That's yeah.
9 over 20. I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass on this one.
All right, 9. Not a lot of respect here. I'm a little surprised. No, a lot of respect for the Jaguars there. Let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs, 10-6. And by the way, Andy Reid, a career, almost 680, I think. In other words, winning about 2/3 of his games career-wise, Andy Reid, but much maligned, doesn't seem to perform well in the playoffs. They were absolutely steamrolled by the Tennessee Titans in the a division home game where they played and were beaten, upset in the second half by the Titans. Kansas City, 10-6 last season. Not a lot of respect there. Thinks they're going to fall back to close to 500 at 8.5 wins. Seems a little low, though, given the pedigree of Andy Reid. CJ, what do you think?
Well, I think Andy Reid's offenses at Kansas City have been predicated on cutting down on mistakes. That's really been the most important thing. And Alex Smith was able to do that for them. But now they're transitioning to a player who is really a quasi-rookie. I mean, he's played a couple of games in the NFL. And so now Patrick Mahomes has to be a guy that doesn't make rookie mistakes. To me, a transitional year for the offense. Kareem Hunt he took the NFL by storm last season as a 3rd-round draft choice. I'd like to see him repeat that again, really. I'm not really bullish on the Chiefs here. And so I'm going to go under the 8.5 wins here, as I will with 3 of these teams in the AFC West.
Exactly. Yep.
Not a lot of respect for the AFC West. Frank, you agree?
I agree with that. I do. And there are 2 other games besides the AFC North and the NFC West. They play against New England and Jacksonville. No, this is one of my top 3 here. I like the under here. I don't see 9 wins here. Wow. I'll take under.
All right. Not a lot of respect for the Chiefs. Now I'm going to do this over the next 5 years. I know I'm going to keep calling them the San Diego Chargers, but it's the Los Angeles Chargers. All right, keep slapping me. As I keep calling them San Diego. But they were 9-7 last season. What a remarkable season they had where they win this. They go 0-4 because of a lot of missed field goals, and they win, I think, 9 of 10 or something, and then they lost their last couple of games. But Anthony Lynn is doing a good job as a coach there. Phillip Rivers can always rack up the yardage. That, by the way, gentlemen, is going to be one of the top defenses in the AFC, along with Jacksonville and probably Denver. Watch the LA/San Diego Chargers to hit at least 9-10 wins. By the way, real quick before I go to Charles Jay, this line in Las Vegas opened up at 8. It was bet up to 8.5. It was bet to 9. It's bet to 9.5. So maybe I could see going the other way a bit. But there's been a lot of movement on the Los Angeles Chargers to go over the initial win.
Well, I'm going the other way on this, but not necessarily with a whole lot of enthusiasm. I just think the number's a little too high. They should have won more games last year, and I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but they gave up fewer points per game than any team in the NFL last year. They gave up only 17 points per game. So yes, the defense is there. I know Anthony Lynn is a guy who likes to pound the football. You know, he's got a background coaching running backs. I don't know that Melvin Gordon is the guy that can really propel this team to a division title, though. I think they need more depth back there. And so, I mean, I think this is, and another thing that I think I talked about with you, Nolan.
No home field advantage.
No home field advantage. I mean, many times, almost all the time, the other team, the visiting team, has had more fans in the stands than the Chargers have.
Yeah, and the Rams are now the darlings of Los Angeles. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, I mean, a measured play here, but under this total.
All right, we're going to come right back. We're going to do the rest of the AFC. I got to talk real fast, and we'll be right back. with Frank Perez, Las Vegas Frank, along with Charles Jay, CJ in Miami. Well, Miami, appropriately enough, we're going to talk about the Miami Dolphins in a moment. 6-10 last season. Adam Gase, a player's coach, they say. This is a team you know too well, CJ. Give us your Miami local expertise on the Dolphins. Their posted win total is 6 wins. Wow, that seems a little low, doesn't it?
Well, a lot of people have been getting on Derek Jeter's case here for dealing away the Miami Marlins' best players, but look what the Dolphins have done. They had, starting with about mid-season last year, they have let go of Jay Ajayi, Ndamukong Suh, Mike Pouncey, and Jarvis Landry. These are all Pro Bowl players, probably their 4 best players. So it gives you a lot of pause about what their plan is in Miami. I'm not a really big fan of Ryan Tannehill. He can, he's one of those guys. He's a numbers guy, but I don't know that he's going to get them, a lot of victories. The Dolphins could be right at 6. If you put the gun to my head, I'd go under and take the price here.
Frank, you were talking about the AFC East as the division, except if you're going to fade New England, just bet all the other teams over. This includes the Miami Dolphins. What do you think?
Well,
here?
yeah, because see, this division has the lowest win total of any of them, 30. They have 30 is the combined win total of all 4 teams. Now Miami plays AFC South and NFC North, and then they play Oakland and Cincinnati. Gosh, you know what? I agree with CJ here. I think it's a 6 spot. I think it lands 6.
Moving on to a team that needs no introduction, maybe the greatest team of all time in terms of dynasties, Bill Belichick's, Tom Brady's New England Patriots. 13-3 last season. It seemed like their win totals are always around 10.5, 11, sometimes 11.5. Wow, 40 years old I think Tom Brady is. Can they just keep winning, CJ?
Well, one thing with New England is that you have a background of excellence here, and you have seen what they've done in the past. They lose players that you think are so essential, and then they just plug somebody else in. I'm going over here because it's a question of whether they're going to win 12 or 10 games, right? If you have to go one way or the other, and I would go over here. Quick plug for the alma mater. Okay. They love those little Smurf receivers. Okay. In the 6th round, they drafted a kid named Braxton Berrios, who is 5'9", great hands, returns punts, can run. And, they'll make him into a player there in New England. Danny Amendola is here in Miami now. Well, they'll take the Miami kid, University of Miami kid, and they'll make him a great role player in their offense one way or the other. They just keep chugging along.
Frank?
I'm going to pass on this one also because, I think 11's a really good number. I would see if you bet over, you got to win 12. That's tough. If you bet under, then you can you got to get to 10. I think 11's the number. They play AFC South, NFC North. Then they play KC and Pittsburgh. Tough. It's too dependent on Brady. I'm going to pass on this one also. I think 11 is the number.
I'm going to file this away for a future show based on what Charles Jay said. Here's the question of the day. Could Bill Belichick make Ryan Leaf into a Super Bowl quarterback? That's going to be a future show. We'll get to that later. New York Jets, 5-11 last season. Drafted, of course, the big news, the top draft choice out of USC, Sam Darnold. I'm not a believer in USC quarterbacks playing in that 72-degree weather, that soft grass, those lousy Pac-10, Pac-12 teams. I really like Todd Bowles as a head coach of the Jets. In fact, that was a covering machine, I thought, a lot of times with the Jets last season. Seemed to cover more often than not. Lost a lot of close games, but I do not like Sam Darnold as a starting quarterback. Over under 6 wins. Frank, I'm going to throw it first to you on the Jets.
Oof, that's another tough one. Okay, AFC South, NFC North is who they play outside of their division. Then Cleveland and Denver. 6 under 30. Gosh, this is a tough one.
If you're thinking about it, you're probably passing.
You know what? I'm gonna. I'm passing, brother. I don't have to play. I don't have to.
You don't have to play. You don't have to bet every game. Charles Jay.
Well, this is one of those teams, as you kind of alluded to. They played 3.5 really good quarters against a lot of teams last season, and they couldn't close out things. So they were close. And that was unexpected. You mentioned Todd Bowles. Hey, there were people writing in the New York newspapers about how they might go 0-16 with the dump they made of players last offseason. I don't know that Darnold figures into this thing too prominently this season. What makes this an intriguing possibility, believe it or not, is Teddy Bridgewater. If he is healthy, and if he can play. Remember, he's a guy that took Minnesota to the playoffs. He's been to the Pro Bowl. He is mobile. He can do a lot of things. He was a first-round draft choice. Who knows what could happen if you have a guy like him that wins the starting job. I think right now they're looking at Josh McCown. But I think the Jets have made a couple of little additions, like Terrell Pryor at the wide receiver spot, Isaiah Crowell's come aboard. These are things that I think will make a difference in making them more competitive. So I would lean toward the over with the Jets.
Over on the Jets at 6 wins. Moving on to the Oakland/Las Vegas Raiders coming in 2019. Las Vegas residents, we have to plug that. John Gruden, first year, he's back as a head coach. First time he's going to coach in 10 seasons. I'm not sure that's a good thing. The NFL's changes a lot. 8.5 wins, I think, 8 wins we've got here at Bet Any Sports on the Raiders. This is a team that seems to have fallen back. A lot of people thought this was going to be a Super Bowl contender in 2017. They go 6-10 and disappoint a lot of people. And now they're forecasted as a 500 team. CJ, your thoughts?
I agree with you. I do believe Gruden has some catching up to do. And I don't know that what the game he played 10, 12 years ago is going to win here. I think that when he's been successful, he's had either a virtuoso in the West Coast offense, like a Rich Gannon, or a dominating defense like he had in Tampa Bay. He does not have a dominating defense in Oakland. But maybe he can mold Derek Carr into the kind of quarterback he wants. I wonder what they're going to get out of the running back spot with Marshawn Lynch and Doug Martin. They're good names, but are they going to give them? Are they going to give the Oakland Raiders? I don't even know if Lynch is playing. So it's an iffy proposition for them. They are the one team in this division I might go over with, but again, I think that they might be stuck on 8 as far as I'm concerned. Although, again, they have a chance if the enthusiasm of Gruden really sets in, that they could battle out with a team like the Chargers for the division title. It's a weak division, yeah.
Excellent point, though, about the leadership that Gruden could bring, maybe a game changer. That's a big, bold statement, but you could be right. There's upside there. Frank, what do you think on the Raiders?
Well, like besides the fact that they're not in a great. I don't even like their division. I think that they can actually win at least four out of here. Then they got the AFC North, NFC West. They play against Miami and Indy. I like the Raiders. I like the Raiders over.
Wow.
I'll take the Raiders over.
That's a surprise to me. We'll argue about that going forward. I'm sure before the 2018 season starts. Let's move on.
I like the Vegas Knights too, by the way.
We're going to close it out with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So, no laughing.
A team that's always a public team. 13-3 last season. Mike Tomlin, Ben Roethlisberger coming back for another season. Could be his last. There's discussion about that. Probably a weaker division than you've got Cincinnati and Cleveland. Should be 4 wins right there. Baltimore maybe falling back to 500. That should be easily. They get to 5 wins right there. But 10.5 on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Little surprise. I'm just a little surprised it's not shaded a little higher toward the over, given the pedigree of Ben Roethlisberger and what Mike Tomlin has done year after year with the Steelers. CJ, you agree?
Yes, I think there is, again, a history of excellence here as well. Don't forget Tennessee, by the way. I think
that's coming next.
That's one of my favorites. We're going to talk about next.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, though, as Frank talked about, as we're speculating here, Roethlisberger could go down for a couple of games. And I think there's a huge drop-off beyond that. I wouldn't touch this prop now because – there's an iffy situation with Le'Veon Bell. I mean, they're going to put the franchise – I think they're attempting to put the franchise tag on him again. And although I'm not an expert in how all that works, I think they're all assuming he's going to wind up there on week 1. But I don't know that he's going to training camp. So this is going to be a strange situation with Pittsburgh.
Well, here's what I think about that. I kind of agree with most of that. They play AFC West outside of their division, NFC South. But see, then they get New England and Jacksonville. Tough schedule. And they're so dependent on Roethlisberger and everything. I am going to have to, but it's under 30. See, if you like the over plus 110, you should go to Bet Any Sports. That's the best price on the over.
Sure.
I'll take the under here. I'll take under 10.5. I'm not going to say they're going to win 11
You're
games.
probably thinking they go 10-6. That's your thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then maybe they mail in a game or two. Yeah.
Not
By the way,
mail in.
they went 13-3 last season. I just want to point that
That's
out.
okay. They got everything going their way. They got a much tougher schedule, and Roethlisberger's another year older.
For sure. All right. So is Tom Brady, but he threw for 500 yards in the Super Bowl last season.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm needling you here. Okay.
Hey,
All right.
guys,
Last
thank
team.
you.
By the way, a little extra time here, but we got the Tennessee Titans. It was just a remarkably interesting team to discuss here. We got 8 wins. Experts supposedly thinking they're going to go 8-8. But talk about Mike Mularkey, who was the coach last season. They win their first playoff game. They beat Kansas City. They win their first playoff game in 13 years.
Yeah?
Since 2003.
Wow.
He takes them to the playoffs. He goes 9-7, 2016. He goes 9-7 in 2017. This is a winning coach. He rebuilds that franchise, makes them into a winner after Jeff Fisher left him in the dumps for a decade. And then what do they do to Mike Mularkey? They fire him. He's gone. And so now the Tennessee Titans may be rudderless and right at 8 wins. That does not that number does not show a lot of respect for the Titans here. A lot of question marks. It's one of the most intriguing teams in the NFL to me. What do you think, CJ?
Well, I was going to say exactly what you said. I was going to mention about Mularkey getting fired after that huge comeback against Kansas City, but then losing pretty soundly to New England. But I look at it a different way than you do. The way I look at it is this organization is reaching higher. They believe that they have and should have the personnel to be a major contender for the AFC Championship. Mike Vrabel's going to be a really interesting influence on that team. They're not going to play what Mularkey referred to as the exotic smash mouth style of football. They have parted ways with DeMarco Murray, but they think Derrick Henry can be their workhorse running back. And remember, they got Deion Lewis, who was with the Patriots last season, and he adds a little bit to that passing game out of the backfield. Remember one thing about Tennessee. They got to the playoffs last season, and Marcus Mariota did not have a real good season, and he is capable of a better season than that. One quick note, an injury concern with them. Jack Conklin, the right tackle, an all-pro, he had knee surgery. He may have to sit out the first 6 weeks of the season if they put him on the reserve PUP list. And that could be a difference maker here with Tennessee. On balance, though, I'm over on the Tennessee Titans.
We got 20 seconds. Frank Perez?
I agree also. I think this team is a lot better than 8. And the 8's minus 105 on the 8 at Bet Any Sports. I would I'll definitely go over here.
Tough division. You got the Houston Texans, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
No, you got Indy, and then they play Baltimore and the Chargers.
Maybe the Colts coming back with Mr. Andrew Luck. A lot to cover. Well, we went over all 32 teams. Congratulations, gentlemen, on Fifth Street Sports. We covered all 32 teams. We're going to be right back with some closing thoughts and best bets here on FifthStreetSports.com. Back here on Fifth Street Sports with a closing segment. Closing segment, we talked in NFL all day here in May, and this is the AFC, the closing round, talking about our best bets of the AFC for season win totals of the upcoming, it's a few months away, but it's the 2018 NFL regular season coming up at the first part of September. Gentlemen, let's go over it one more time. Your best bets for the AFC. Frank?
Okay, I got 3. I like Kansas City under the 8.5. I want to take Cleveland under 5.5. I'm just going to stick with what I know. And I've been watching football 54 years, by the way. And then I'm going to also, I'm going to step out with this Tennessee over 8. That's my 3 in the AFC.
CJ, it's all yours.
Frank, can we go to the window together? I got Tennessee over, Cleveland under, and Houston over as my 3 best.
Boy, you got to be kidding me. The same
with
thing.
With a 4th place finish for the 4th place, I almost said San Diego. Okay, the StubHub Center Chargers. Okay, are my 4th play there.
Well, gentlemen, I will not be joining you at the window unless it's to watch you guys, cash a ticket. I'll be stand on the sidelines and talk about the Oakland Raiders under, which that team's a fraud. It's falling back to its depths. This is a team that's in disarray. And the Cleveland Browns, 5.5. That win total should be 4.5 in my view. You don't go from 0 wins to 6 wins overnight. It's going to take some time. And, wow, we covered a lot of territory, gentlemen.
Yeah, we did.
I'm really impressed. Thank you very much. A good shootout. Shout out to Boggs Polino. He's our technical wizard here at Fifth Street Sports for flipping all the switches and making sure. CJ, what do you got there, Frank?
Oh, and I just want to say, hello to the boss. He's in Colorado watching his son graduate college. And also, don't forget, betanysports.eu. 50% bonus up to $1,000. It's World Cup time, fellas, and it's Major League Baseball, reduced juice, and everything we just talked about in the NFL.
Always be closing, and that's what he's doing is closing. Be sure and follow us at FifthStreetSports.com. You can subscribe. We've got a website that's live now. Follow us at Twitter, FifthStreetSports.com. We're going to come back every single Saturday. We're here from 2 to 4 Pacific Standard Time with a live show talking about sports. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next time.